Hey there, I'm Drutter. Today's July 1st, 2020. Happy Canada Day. It's day 108 of my lockdown diary here. And the state of tyranny, emergency, continues here in British Columbia as 500,000 people are dead worldwide of the virus, and that is increasing by about 4,000 to 5,000 people per day. If you put it in perspective, it currently is about as bad as a fairly bad flu, which happens, as we know, at least once a year. The flu is almost a constant thing, basically, coming around and knocking people out at about 500 to 600, even more, thousand people every year when it gets bad, and it often does. And this virus has now taken out 500,000 people, or just over that now. And I guess now we are somewhere between the first peak and the scheduled second peak, or maybe it has already happened, or maybe we're just approaching peak 1.5 or something. I guess they're saying that we're reopening, but also pausing the reopening. So where does that leave us? I don't know. But I know that I have a dartboard and 3 darts, and I may throw them as we continue on here. So yeah, happy Canada Day here, or happy anyways in quotes. It's also Cannabis Day for those who celebrate that day. I remember the 2015 Battle of Cannabis Day, where we fought literally against the police who attacked peaceful protesters, and we had been there for 20 plus years doing that at Cannabis Day on Canada Day. And it's not in disrespect to Canada Day. We celebrate Canada Day as well while we're there. We are happy about the things that we should be happy about. We're happy about the freedoms that we do have, which of course are less and less every year, especially this year. So it's kind of hard to celebrate Canada Day or Cannabis Day at all, even if we were allowed to celebrate it, which we are not. It's only virtual celebrations, and they're saying the celebration is going to be bigger than ever this year because it is virtual. The fireworks are going to be better than ever this year because they are created in a computer. They're virtual, just like our freedom here in Canada, I guess you could say. And now, speaking of that, they're bringing in what seems to be almost mandatory mask wearing in Canada. The mask issue, well, actually they're not masks, they're just face coverings, or niqabs, I guess you could call them, or whatever, but it's basically just a cloth covering for your face. They say specifically, don't bother with medical masks, leave those to the professionals. They don't help you, although maybe they do, but it depends on which study you listen to and which politicians and media outlets you listen to. It's becoming a very political thing, as you've probably seen. And mask wearing has been, it's been controversial in a lot of circles. Some people even say that wearing masks for certain ethnicities is dangerous because you may be considered a criminal, because people will stereotype you. So bringing the whole masks and race thing sort of into mix, which is already in the mix big time right now. Those issues are hot right now, obviously, in the media and on the streets right now. They're saying in the US they're going to make it mandatory in all of the USA for people to wear masks. Jennifer Aniston came on with her friend's hair and everything today on CNN and said, "Shame on you." She said, what did she say exactly? She said, "Just get on a damn mask," or something like that. And I think it was, I don't know, George Clooney or Brad Pitt or one of the guys is quoted as saying, "Shame on anyone that's not wearing a mask." So they're bringing out the big guns here, the big propagandists against people that don't want to put on the mask. So one way or the other, if you like it or not, you are in this discussion, you are in this debate. Because if you're not wearing a mask now, that's apparently a political statement. That's apparently a dangerous thing. It's apparently, actually, you are endangering others by not being a mask wearer. So, and I have a feeling it has not gotten as weird as it's going to get. here in Canada or around the world. And it's basically the same here. We don't have Jennifer Aniston, but we've got our own people that are coming out, and yeah, it's all being politicized, it's all being propagandized, it's all being pushed big time. And I heard Dr. Fauci in the US yesterday, I think it was, calling for boots on the ground, actually using that quote to increase contact tracking in the USA. Boots on the ground. Using that quote. I don't think that they are kidding, and I think that they are getting us ready for actual physical boots on the ground. Not that it takes boots on the ground for you to have a police state, for you to have tyranny. You do have tyranny and a police state now in Canada and in the USA, and I've been documenting that. It is a police state now. It doesn't have to be. You don't look out, you don't see those, people marching down the street in tanks and stuff. It's not necessarily going to look that way this time. It's not. It's going to look different this time. It always looks different, and that's why we never recognize it. I'm sorry, but this is why it happens. It's because we don't recognize that things change. We don't recognize fascism when it comes back around. We don't recognize tyranny when it comes back around. And it has come back around. Now, they are now demonizing in the media what is called the Boogaloo movement. And you can't even say that word or type that word on Twitter, on Facebook, anywhere else. I don't care. I don't know who these people are, if they're even real. But for you to make up this word and introduce it to the society, Boogaloo movement, and then all of a sudden censor it, you can't say that. You can't... There we go. I'm not a dart thrower, but I like to throw a dart when I get pissed off in here. I'm going to get some balloons, I think, and actually pop some balloons sometime if I can hit them. But it's just... You can't say Boogaloo. This is now this video, because text to speech or speech to text or whatever, it's going to detect that I've said that, and this video will be censored, as all of my videos are. I can get maybe 100 views on a video now, even if it's amazing, no matter what. Great thumbnail, perfect everything. Flawless, excellent video, great content, unique footage that no one else can get. I can upload and get 100 views on that now. It doesn't matter what I type. I could start a new account on YouTube and get more than 100 views, even though I don't have my 9,000 subscribers on that new account, right? That's how censored I am here now. Why don't I just delete this channel and start over? I don't know. And this is not being uploaded just to YouTube, by the way. So if you're watching this on YouTube, be aware I'm not just uploading here. But the censorship is just disturbing. And if you can't say Boogaloo, how's anyone even going to know what it is? I don't even know what it is. I don't even know if the media created this, or if it was, media created or fueled or whatever, or if it's authentic. But apparently it's people who believe in their right to bear arms, and they show up at protests and stuff. They're peaceful, apparently, but depending on what media you listen to, their intentions aren't peaceful. Their intentions may be to kill people and stuff, but I doubt it. If there's anyone actually that considers themselves Boogaloo, then I doubt that they are instigators. I doubt that they are going there to hurt people. I betcha what they are is people who believe in freedom. Generally, is what they are. People that believe in freedom, people who believe in the Constitution. Heaven forbid, right? Or the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada. Heaven forbid that you believe in that. That we were told, as kids anyway, that that was the law of the land, and nothing can come above that. It says that right there in the law, that nothing will ever come above this. And if anything does, destroy it. It says that right in the Constitution, right in the Charter. It says that. Nothing can come above that. Nothing can infringe upon that. And it has been infringed upon. The US has declared sovereign citizens, which basically is people who believe in common law, people who believe in the law of people who believe in humans, people who believe that we have a culture, that we have an ongoing culture of peacefulness and harmony and not coercing and not threatening and not doing violence against each other. Common law is the people's law, and it has been in place for thousands of years. And sovereign citizens that believe in common law are now being considered terrorists, domestic extremists. Oh, gotta get better at darts. Terrorists and domestic extremists. That's not just wrong, it's a complete reversal of reality. These people they believe in freedom, and they're being considered terrorists by the United States. The United States was supposedly founded on freedom. Who else would be considered a sovereign citizen, or I think as they call it in some places, a free man on the land? As they've been smeared and equated with terrorists now and domestic extremists. Who else? I think people like Washington, Jefferson, Paine, and others, basically almost everybody who created the USA, and a lot of people who created Canada too, believe in common law. That is how we were founded. We were sovereign. And we have come now 180 degrees. An animal farm is what the United States and Canada have become. We are what we set out to not be. We now are a system of oppression, control, and tyranny. And specifically outlawing freedom, and no one does anything. No one is doing anything about it, except for, I guess, making videos that aren't being seen. I don't know. What is is that the Boogaloo movement? Is that supposedly what? Is that militias? Is what they basically are? Is that the United States? What do you call it? Not a standing army. That's the police force in the United States is basically a standing army. What do you call it? I don't know. I guess militias. Private citizens, people who have the right to bear arms, sovereign citizens, basically. And that is what we are now against in these countries that set out to be free, to be sovereign. We have gone 180 degrees, and even supporting freedom now is seen as terrorism. How are we going to be free if we can't even endorse freedom without being considered terrorists and domestic extremists? And how far have we come in just 5-10 years to that? And where are we going to be in a few years? Where is freedom going to be in a few years? We are not going to just be called terrorists, we will be hunted down, is what's coming. If things don't change, if the current pattern continues, if you imagine a staircase with tyranny in one direction and freedom in the other direction, if we continue on the same direction, if we keep making steps in the wrong direction, in the same direction that we've been going, we are going to end up with people that believe in freedom. Peaceful people who believe in freedom, free speech, and the Constitution or the Charter of Rights. Those people will be the enemies of the state. The state isn't turning their surveillance and their spy programs and their wars and their drones inward for no reason. They are to be used against us. And it is not paranoia to talk like this. This is what's happening. I'm talking about what's actually happening in the news and the patterns that are happening and where we are going in the next very short while. I have been right about this for 15 years now. I'm not just making stuff up when I talk about this. And I have been called paranoid at every point along those 15 years. It doesn't matter how many times and how often I'm right. In fact, the righter I am, the more censored I am, and the more paranoid I am called. Think about that. And think about how that feels. It's not a nice feeling to I don't care about name calling, but it feels like I'm trapped, because if I'm wrong, of course, I'll be ignored and called wrong and all that kind of stuff. But if I'm right, I am hidden. I am censored. I am I'm slandered to detract from what I'm saying. But I'm right. Things that I've said on this channel and in my activism have saved lives, have improved many lives, and have been credited with saving lives. I have been credited with saving lives through my activism. But when it's censored, that is basically like taking away my ability to save lives. And that's why I take it so seriously. Censorship is one of the worst things you can possibly do to someone who is, like me, just trying to have a voice. If you censor that voice, it takes away my whole reason for being here. I'm not making money, am I? I have never managed to monetize what I do. You're not making money on freedom. This is an unpopular, censored, hated on topic, even though it should be the most important topic. And speaking of the media, there's a new push, a new meme being created, a new idea being formed in all the mainstream media that asymptomatic positive people that don't really have a lot of symptoms but do test positive, end up having no detectable level of antibodies. So, and that would explain a few things. I don't know if this is true. This is what they are telling me. We don't know if that is true or not. They tell us a lot of truth. They tell us a lot of lies. So I don't know that yet. But if that is true, it implies some interesting things. For example, Sweden, Sweden is, the one that is going for herd immunity. They're trying to let all their people have it and just hope that the deaths aren't too high, and that's been their strategy. But they've been shit on by the rest of the world for doing that and lied about. The rest of the world says it's going terrible there, but they say it's going well. Anyhow, Sweden only has about 20% of their people with antibodies. They keep testing it. It goes up slowly, but it's not going up very quickly. And they were hoping for like 70% or so to say, okay, that's basically herd immunity. And basically we don't have to worry about it anymore. But they haven't really worried about it much at all. They didn't have a lockdown. They closed some borders. They had some contact tracking, and they had some voluntary social distancing. So it was very light what happened there, and their economy did well because they didn't lock it down. But they've been criticized because they're only seeming to be approaching about 20% or so with antibodies. But if this new media push is true, that is very interesting. Now, not mentioning this, of course, about Sweden, they're using this push to basically say a bunch of other things like we need immunity passports and vaccines and more vaccines and more contact tracking. That's what they're pushing that for. But what it also means, if it's true, they can't have it both ways. If that's what it means, then it means that the reason that Sweden only has 20% with antibodies is because most people that have had it are asymptomatic and they don't end up with antibodies. So in other words, everybody in Sweden has already been exposed and has already had the illness. They've already had the illness. It's already done. They don't have a second wave really to worry about, unless there's like mutations and stuff, but that's a whole other issue. They don't have a second wave of this virus, of this mutation to worry about. It has happened for them. It's over. And the rest of the world's pretending that's not the case. But if you put two and two together, that's what's going on here. That's why they only have about 20% of their people with antibodies, because most of them just don't show the antibodies. But they've already had it and they've already recovered. And they're not getting sick again. Maybe in the future those antibody levels will be so low, or whatever ends up happening, that they are able to be sick again. But for now, they cannot get sick. So they basically have herd immunity in Sweden without that 60, 70, 80% number that people say basically that you need somewhere around there. No, I don't think they do. They've never had a lockdown, and all their people have had it. It has spread. It spreads very quickly. That's why it has spread to every country and to millions and millions of people in just months. It's very, very, very fast spreading. Unless you are specifically isolating yourself, you basically had this. You've basically already had it. If you've had any kind of symptom, or even if you hadn't had symptoms, you probably had it. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have antibodies. But this is amazing. It means that Sweden is doing the right thing. That is the right strategy. Congratulations to them, and shame on the rest of the world who is putting their people through lockdowns, which are killing far more people than the illness itself, and taking away all our freedoms and destroying our economies, probably permanently in some cases. Shame on them for hiding the fact that Sweden is doing the right thing by leaving their economy open. Everyone's had it. Their death rate is going down and down and down and down. It's almost to nothing now. Almost no one in Sweden is dying now of this. They've had their deaths. Their hospital system didn't crash. They're okay. And it's what we should have done. We don't have a real strategy in Canada or the US. We have all kinds of strategies all mixed together. Wear masks, don't wear masks. Contact tracking, don't contact tracking. Vaccines, no vaccines. There's a real mix. And it's not going to be a good strategy. That's not a strategy. A mix of strategies is not a strategy. So that's why it's still going on in US and Canada. We've got no strategy and it's just rumbling on. And they are taking advantage of the crisis. We are still in a state of emergency, and they are not going to let up on that state of emergency. And quote me on that. And if they do, I will be very happy, because the state of emergency means that we have no freedoms. Not that we ever did, but now they have specifically taken them away from us. And that leaves people vulnerable. If anything happens, you want your freedom in place. You don't need it until you need it. And I'd like to have it in place again now. I'd like to have our freedom back now in case something happens, because I do believe something else is going to happen. Oh, I think I hit the other dart. I think this is a 1, 2, maybe 3 punch thing, and the virus is just the first part of it. Collapse of the economy, yes, is another part of it, and that will be ongoing, but I think there's going to be more like black swan, false flag type events in the next few months. And where to go with that? I think I'm just going to move on to another issue that I heard about, and that is a coin and currency shortage, a shortage of actual coinage. I don't know about Canada with our $1 and $2 coins, but in the US, their coins, including down to the quarters and the dimes and nickels and everything, is, I think pennies even, are in massive shortage. They're having trouble making change at places a lot of the time. And so they're not accepting cash, including change. They won't even accept coin. It's so funny. It's like, we won't accept coin because of the coin shortage right now. But anyway, that's just weird. And it's just another push, I think, toward cashless economy. They've been just salivating for decades. And this has been a major push, and I didn't think they were going to be able to do it with this crisis. They definitely tried at the beginning of this crisis. It looked like it was going to be the last of the cash. And then some people pushed back, and some other things didn't go exactly the way I think it was intended to go. And they've sort of backed off on that and said cash is going to have to be allowed for now. There's just too many people it will kill, basically. People they won't have an economy, they won't have a market, they won't have a way to trade, they won't have a way to get stuff, and they'll have to go to basically trying to barter with what they have in the house to get food and stuff, and people will suffer and starve. So they aren't going to do it yet, but they're getting frickin' ready for it, and it will just go. When it goes, it will be gone. It'll go the last 10% in one day. We're approaching the cash. We've been going how much cash is used has been going from 100% all the way down towards 0%, and we're maybe at 15, 12% now. And I think once it gets down by 10% or so, they're just going to go, it's done. Enough people have moved over. There's a few enough people that are going to be affected by it. That's it. We can't do it anymore. We can't do cash. And you will not get any warning of that day. It was just like when the penny got removed in Canada. I was shocked at how fast it came. They announced it one day like, oh, no more penny. Like it was just a rumor for a while, and all of a sudden, the penny's gone. And I went to the bank to get pennies that day, and they're like, oh, didn't you hear the penny's gone? There was no more pennies in one day. And you've got a few in your change for the next couple of weeks or whatever, here and there, and it dwindled down. And then it was like, no, there are no more pennies in Canada. If you see a penny, you're, what? Where'd you get that? It came fast. When they make these changes, it goes quickly. And when cash is demonetized, essentially, there's going to be a major change overnight. And it's going to be too late. So be prepared and realize that that's coming, and do what you need to do now. I'm not going to tell you all the steps that you need to take. I've done videos on it before. You could search if you want, and so have a lot of other people. But what we need to do is be prepared for a cashless economy coming. They are ready almost to do it. They're salivating for it, like I said. So this coin and currency shortage is just another part of that. I don't know if there really is a coin shortage. Why would there be a coin shortage right now? I guess the economy was slowed down as people put their change into jars and stuff, and then now that the economy's back open again, they're not spending the change? It's not coming back in? Or is it because banks aren't even accepting it, or not even really open right now to accept change? I don't know why there's not change and why the mint can't run or whatever, but that's happening anyway. And I don't even want to get into the Black Lives Matter thing. I was going to talk about that. I've done a video called Lives Matter. And yes, that is offensive to the Black Lives Matter movement. I called it Lives Matter purposely. And I would like people to watch that if they haven't seen it and they're interested in that topic. That's basically what I have to say about that. And I think it has been co-opted, or it was already just basically an agenda in the first place. You know, there are organic people in it, and I feel badly for them being abused and used. Because I know I've been an activist myself, and I think agendas have been using me as well. Agendas exist, and we have to try and find out who they are and what they want, why they are manipulating. And I think that this bunch of people, which often many of them are well-meaning, has been manipulated and co-opted, and it's basically cultural Marxism, basically. You know, we are pulling down statues, deleting people, even people that weren't racist, even people that were anti-racist crusaders and freed slaves and stuff. They're getting their statues pulled down if they were white. So it's not really about racism, is it? It's about anti-white sentiment. It's about anti-white racism is what Black Lives Matter and this whole movement is. Not everybody within it is racist against white people, but essentially the entire thing is that, and it has been yielded and wielded that way. It's not a way to equality. It's not. I believe in equality. I do believe, absolutely. Not that everyone is equal in terms of everyone is exactly the same. Of course we aren't exactly the same. We have differences, and we should celebrate and acknowledge our differences. That's excellent. We are equal in terms of our rights, in terms of our worth as beings, in terms of we should be respected as sovereign, as sentient beings, and not as people with different skin colors and different nose sizes and other attributes. It matters, but it doesn't matter to the extent that we put on it. And this movement is just about causing division. It is causing great division. Just the name of it causes division. It puts people's hair on the back of their neck up. Black Lives Matter. It just creates division just on the face of it. And then if you read their agenda, it's offensive. It's racist. It's divide and conquer. And they say there's all these media today is saying, quote, calls to eradicate racism. There's a call now, a worldwide call to eradicate racism around the world. Everyone's speaking out, end racism. But what this ending racism is, this anti-racism thing means, what it always ends up meaning, if you look into it and you break it down, It means racism, but only against white people, so it's okay. That's what it always means. It's anti-white racism is what they mean by anti-racism. They mean anti-white racism, not anti-racism. And, this is exactly what got us into this mess, right? 100 years ago, say 1920, that was probably said. It was probably, oh, that's racist, but it's okay because it's against black people, right? It's okay. That's exactly what was happening then, and that's what the people truly believe that. They truly believe, and we dehumanize people. We make them like they're not even human, or they're not even sentient beings that deserve any kind of common decency. Why and how do we do this? It's terrible. And that's exactly what got us into this whole mess 100 years ago. Say, you could have heard someone saying the opposite of what's being said now. 100 years ago, you could talk about freedom. Even 10, 15, 20 years ago, you can talk about freedom. Nowadays, if you talk about freedom, that's in people's minds, people that talk about freedom or free speech, that's actually people who are dangerous. That's in people's minds now. Freedom is being equated with terrorism, with danger. Freedom it's everything. Give me liberty. Or give me death. I mean that. Freedom, if we don't have freedom, we don't have anything. Why do we fight for anything? Why do we work so hard to make money and all this kind of stuff? Why do we care? Why do we care if we don't have freedom? And why is it seen as ridiculous to talk about it? To talk about freedom? To advocate for freedom? I don't know. Why is it so wrong to say that calling for boots on the ground to contact track this virus? Boots on the ground. Quote. Why is saying that is ridiculous and that is tyranny? Why is that terrorism? Why is it terrorism to show up at events peacefully exercising your right to bear arms? Why is that terrorism? Hasn't that happened all through history? Why now are weapons equated with terrorism? Peaceful use of weapons. It's peaceful. It's not terrorism. I don't know if these people exist, these Boogaloo people. I don't know. I don't care even. It might have been created by the media. I only have heard about it just through the media. It's apparently in the US and Canada now. But basically, it's just people who believe in their rights. Sovereign people. People who don't believe the government should run our lives and run all over us like they are right now. It's not wrong. And for that to be considered terrorism is a complete reversal of what the United States is about. It's the United States saying, our founders are terrorists. They're terrorists. That should show you your country is not the country that you think it is. It has, in recent years, been taken over and is now someone else's country. You're just living there. You're just being abused. Have you noticed that you're basically in an open-air prison? You're not allowed to leave the USA, or Canada if that's where you are. That is your prison. That is where the bars are. They're bigger than a regular prison. It's all the way out to the border is where those bars are. You have to go a ways to find them, but they're there. And your restriction within the prison on your movement, there's restriction on your movement in the prison, within the prison. And you are not allowed certain drugs in the prison, certain chemicals, certain compounds. They want to know what you're taking. They want to know what you're eating, where you're spending your money at the commissary. This is a lockdown, a prison term of a country. We have no freedom, and anyone who says so is a terrorist. That's why no one watches my videos, because they're 36 minutes long. Thank you for watching, and stay well.